Retirement can look simple from the outside. Work stops, life begins, except it's not always that tidy.
After years of helping people plan for it, retirement, I've seen how messy it can get when it's not thought through properly. So today I'll walk you through the 5 mistakes I see people make when they retire. Mistakes that can quietly derail what should have been a really good chapter of life.
I'm Mark Leishman.
And I'm Hannah McQueen, and this is the Next Bit Bite Size.
So Hannah, let's start with the 5 big mistakes people make when it comes to their retirement.
Stop work too abruptly and too early. No income transition plan. Downsize too late, later than they should. Not factor in the cost of providing care to either for yourself or for your spouse. And overhelping your adult children.
Right. So if we go through those perhaps one by one, stopping work too abruptly, what's the issue with that?
Well, you hit 65, you hang up your gloves, and then I don't know what you're doing. You're doing nothing.
Golf.
Well, yeah. Yes, you're playing golf. So the problem...
That's one day a week.
Yes, that's right. Look, you have earned a reprieve without a doubt, but work brings so much to retirement, or so much more than a paycheck. And the paycheck is still helpful. What it gives you is structure and purpose and identity. It works your brain, which is so good for your brain health. And it connects you with people. All of that is good. When you stop work, you need to be able to match each of those things to something else that you're going to be deliberate with to fill that void. Otherwise, it's going to impact your health. But in addition to it, work pays money, and that means while you're earning that money, that's another year we don't have to touch your retirement savings, which means it lasts longer.
What's an income transition plan?
So I get that you want to reduce stress. As you get older, stress is a bad thing, and work can bring about stress. So let's think about, where do you move from with your role? Is there a smaller function that you can take? Is it moving from full-time to part-time? Is it taking a couple of months off and then coming back part-time? Is it actually taking up another role? Or is it moving more to freelance? Is it doing another job entirely? But you still want to have the income coming in, some income coming in. And even if you attribute that income to just the pleasures of life, you might say, well, that's going to be my travel fund. Like, link it to something that feels satisfying and something that you want. But it serves so many things, and it transitions you from all the good things of work, so you have time to design what you're going to do once you do ultimately stop working.
What about downsizing too late? What's the issue with that?
Well, when you leave your runway too late to downsize, the chances of you maximising how much you downsize drop exponentially. So people are like, well, when do you downsize? I could give a blanket number. I could say probably early 70s would be the latest I would want people to be downsizing. Not everyone's ready to downsize then. I get that. But you need to be looking at your savings balance, because that actually is the ticking time bomb of when you need the money by. And if your savings is coming down, and at 65, that savings will be made up of what you've got in the bank and your KiwiSaver balance. If that's coming down at a rate every year, that is telling you how quickly or how long your runway is. And when that is less than 3 years, you need to rattle your dags.
So what about over-helping your adult children?
That's common. And for many, it brings so much joy. And waiting until you die for your kids to receive an inheritance, which is going to make their life better now. I understand why you would want to help your kids. And for many, financial success is being able to help your kids. But if that is at the expense of your own retirement, it is foolish. And maybe the thing you need to do is get your adult kids to get some financial help or financial coaching, because we can't afford for them to be a drain on you when your resources are already too tight.
Another common issue you mentioned is underestimating care costs.
Yeah, so if your spouse needs to go into rest home care, you need to pay for that. And you pay for that from your savings. If you don't have savings, then the government or the taxpayer will cover that cost. But if you do have savings, that's getting depleted to pay for those care costs. Well, that could be $70,000 to $80,000 a year that most people haven't factored into their own retirement plan. And normally that is just for really basic, grim accommodation setting. If you're wanting a nice setting for your spouse who wasn't even intending to be in a rest home, normally it's come about through an unfortunate, unplanned event as opposed to a planned event. If you're wanting them to have a nicer living experience, well, that's going to cost a whole lot more than that each year. That cost needs to be factored into some families planning for their retirement, or at least the access to that money needs to be available. And that's what most people don't know about to factor it in. And even if they did know about it, they wouldn't be, I don't think they'd be clear on how they're supposed to find that money if they don't have that money sitting in their bank account.
So how expensive can that be if someone's health changes?
So we've got two components of your health care. You've got, while you're well, your health needs are still going to be increasing each year. But then you can have an event that puts you into a care home. And I don't think that most Kiwis understand how that care home is paid for. And that can be kind of something that just annihilates savings, and people weren't expecting it. Bearing in mind, a lot of people who end up in care weren't planning to be there. They fell over, they fractured a hip, it's unsafe for them to now go home, or they need assistance with their daily living activities, so they have been deemed serious enough to go into care. They don't even want to be there, but that care is going to cost $1,500 a week. Where is that money going to come from? Well, the government has said, if you've got that money, you need to pay for it. Well, if that's coming from the pot of money that was going to fund you because you're still living for the rest of your life, well, you've just depleted that. So that's the problem. But that $1,500 a week, that's for a grim facility that someone's going to be living in. If you're wanting a nicer facility, you're paying a whole lot more than that, or you are entering into a contract which might cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes as close to $1 million for that person to get into a lovely care home. And of course, you're going to get some of that money back, but where was the money going to come from in the first place?
Do you have any advice about planning for care financially?
You'd prevent decline. Use Brightly. Because so much of the cause of hospital admission was preventable, but people aren't preventing it. And by the time you arrive in hospital, that usually is the start of an accelerated decline towards a rest home and then death. We've got to stop you getting to that point. And that's where you do need to invest in your health so that you are aware of where you are declining, and we're intervening to mitigate that risk earlier.
How do you stop a fall, though, or something like that?
Yeah, well, a fall can be brought about from a whole lot of things. It can be, the obvious is your strength and your balance and your mobility. But it also, it's not the fall per se, it's the fracture that comes from the fall usually. But that could be brought on by osteoporosis risk. It could be because your medications are misfiring. Like if you have more than 5 medications, there's 75% chance you're going to fall, right? It's got nothing to do with your mobility. And if your bones are weak, there's greater chance you're going to be breaking those bones if you do that. Or it could be to do with your brain health, or you're anxious about something and you're not sleeping. There are all these reasons where a fall's risk comes from. If we can identify each one and mitigate, we can tip the scale the other way. And it's a whole lot cheaper to prevent the fall that's then going to cost you $1,500 a week in a rest home. A whole lot cheaper to prevent it. And the quality of life that you achieve from that is exactly what you want. It's independence and living well.
Retirement isn't just about stopping work. It's about making sure the next bit of your life is stable.
And when it's thought through properly, retirement feels secure. When it's not, that's when the stress creeps in. And stress doesn't just affect your bank account, it affects your health.
Which is why planning isn't just about money.
The goal is to stay well and independent for as long as possible. And that's what we focus on at Brightly, helping people look at the whole picture early. not when they're already in crisis. And if you want more information, go to agebrightly.co.nz.
The link is also in our show notes. We'll see you next time on The Next Bit.